You also got Bo Nickal in action, right? They got a late fighter taking the fight against him. I don't even know his name. It doesn't matter. Bo Nickal, I believe they're saying, is the biggest favorite in UFC history, right? This guy's coming into a fight. He's the biggest favorite. First UFC fight, doesn't even have a fight in the UFC. And the hype train is for real. The hype train is for real. He'll be at UFC 290 taking on whoever. It doesn't matter. And maybe, a theory, maybe this is why they're slowing Khamzat down. They want to make sure both these guys are at the top at the same time. Well, I can tell you if one of the two gets to the top first, they're going to have to fight the other. And by that time, that could be one fighter that if they continue on this hype, the trajectory, that maybe could take down Khamzat or present a challenge, right? I don't know if he could throw hands with Khamzat, but he'll get better by the time that comes. And the ability to defend takedowns and get takedowns could make things interesting. I think that will be the most interesting fighter if the hype continues. Not today, but he keeps winning and dominating people, and you got both these guys dominating. I could see that fight being huge 3, 4, 5 years down the road. So keep an eye on that. And, speaking of Khamzat, aren't all these other champions right now kind of like illegitimate champions? They hold the belt, but nobody wants to fight Khamzat to give him a chance to get to the belt. So to me, if that's the way they want to play it, then all these champions are straight up illegitimate champions. They're not real champions. They're fake champions until someone fights Khamzat. You beat Khamzat, I'm willing to believe it. And you say, there's some of you out there that don't like Khamzat, call him a quitter, say all these things. And it's like, Chris Cross, why do you think that he's going to just run the table? Have you not watched his fights? You can see where this thing is going. That's how I feel. That's what I said from day one. I watch every UFC fight. And when I watch Khamzat fight, maybe not the first time, but the second and third, when he fought like 10 days, he had one fight like, let's just say a Wednesday and then another fight on a Saturday. And now you're fighting 10 days apart. And on top of that, the way that he dominated, I knew right then that I was witnessing something different than what I have seen before. And then the next step is, you fight a little bit better at competition. Gerald Meerschaert, you dominate him in 17 seconds. And if you will go back and watch that fight, Meerschaert covered up in about 10, 12 seconds. And it's just like, okay, now Meerschaert usually gets in there and goes to battle with people and beats a lot of people. Gets beat too, but he's a competitor. He's in the mix within almost every fight. He might get submitted. He could submit someone, but he's a fighter. He's in the fights, Not the best, but he's an average fighter. He's average, to good. Better than average. And he went in there and beat him in 17 seconds. Then he gets up there against Burns, which is not his best division. Right? Because he's trying to squeeze down into weight. He could fight once for the title at that weight again, but he's not going to be a premier in that division, a staple in that division. Just like Conor McGregor wouldn't have been a staple in the featherweight. There's eventually he's going to have to move up. And he did that rather quickly when the opportunity presented itself. So he had a tough fight against Gilbert Burns, but Gilbert Burns beats people. He beat Masvidal, right? He beats people. And Khamzat went in there and had a battle on his hands, and he looked pretty darn good, especially in that third round. He's taking shots. He's landing shots. And I think because the fight was close, people were saying, see, now aren't you going to come down from the pedestal and say that? No. I still believe he's going to run through everybody. He had a minor setback. But a lot of times when people have minor setbacks, they end up losing the fight. You don't hear, Khamzat had a minor setback but won. And there's probably a little nerves going in there because now you're getting to the upper, like if you go in there and just run through Gilbert Burns, everybody else might as well get out of the way. Because all these guys, Burns, Covington, Usman, Leon Edwards, are all on the same level. There's going to be one of them that's a little bit better than the others, but they're all relatively on the same level. So he went in there and did what he had to do. Then took the fight against Kevin Holland on short notice because he couldn't make weight. I mean, who cares, right? You're fighting Nate Diaz. What is that really going to do? except be another win and another reason for people to say, oh, Nate Diaz is washed up or whatever they're going to say to diminish your victory. Instead, he fights a Kevin Holland, who to me is more relevant right now. And he fights him more in Kevin Holland's direction at 180 and just demolished him in 2 minutes. He's a different breed. He looks different. And I know some of you are upset because he didn't make the weight against Nate Diaz and this, that, and the other. But you got to put those feelings aside and just look at the fighter and say, doesn't this guy to you look like he's a little bit different than every other cat? And then the UFC's not letting him fight? What's up with that? Something's up with that. So to me, all these other champions right now are illegitimate until they fight Khamzat. Khamzat's the guy to beat. That's just how I feel. He might not be the champion today, but he's already, in my mind, he's already the champion. And until the champions that say right now they're the champions or hold the title, fine. Give Khamzat a shot and beat him. They're illegitimate. Everyone else is just fighting for, the change over time. This guy will be champion for a few fights. This guy gets a belt. He may lose someone else, and there's 3 or 4 guys wrestling around, and then they fade, and a new crop comes up, and then Khamzat to me seems like a guy, he's going to get the title and dominate. And then it's how long can you hold on to it? Because then you got everyone, all the young bucks coming for you, but that's always going to be the case. But he's way better than everybody else in the middleweight division for sure. You know how I feel about Adesanya, but he's way better. Bo Nickal could be a challenge later on down the road. But if you're a Khamzat fan, the 3-belt possibility is still there. You got to get the middleweight first. You go down for one fight and one fight only at at welterweight. One fight and one fight only. Get the middleweight belt first. Go down for one fight, win the belt, never defend it. Go back up to middleweight, defend that a time or two. Go get the light heavyweight. That can happen in a 2 to 3 year stretch. Very easily. The problem is, how long are we going to wait to get to the beginning of that stretch, which, if I'm right, will be getting the middleweight belt first. And the day that Khamzat gets the light heavyweight belt, becomes the first UFC fighter to get 3. All of you that were talking crap all the way along the way, please watch that episode, because that's going to be an 8-hour marathon. That's going to be an 8-hour marathon, because it's going to happen. And it just bothers me that the UFC is getting in the way of that. And heaven forbid, if he doesn't get the 3rd belt, because then he's like 33 or something at the time, 35, whatever, that's a problem. Like, it has to happen in a certain amount of time, because you do start to go downhill. I don't care who you are. Khamzat will slow down. There'll be some 26 to 29-year-old coming up, could be like a Bo Nickal type, might be Bo Nickal, and is on your heels. And they're going to present a problem when they get to you. Whether you win that fight or not, we won't know. I'm not talking today. I'm talking Bo Nickal 3 to 5 years from now. That could present a problem. So they got to hurry up and get the ball rolling for Khamzat, and it's frustrating that they're making him wait and wait and wait.
He's gonna fight, wait, he's gonna fight, wait. Hold your breath till the end of the night. Last fighter call, UFC at its height. Yeah. Bringing that thunder with all his might, saying, step up, wanna fight? Hold up, think twice. Gladiator, assassin, reckless, no abandon. Walk through that cage, he'll leave your ass stranded. Wake up, hey, where you at? Hey, got hit in the head with a baseball bat.